Hey guys, this is going to be our last assessment of the summer. Yay! This one is newly redesigned, so if you have looked at it previously, this is probably going to look very different. I am hoping and praying that it makes more sense to you guys now. So, assessment 8. First of all, I think I told y'all in some of the assessments, I'm now separating out the applied practice standards that we were trying to meet from the foundational standards. And I'm also not using the highlighting tool for the foundational standards. I think I was trying to meet too many of the standards too often, and it was getting a little jumbled. So anyway, I'm just making those changes as we go along to try to make each assessment a little more meaningful and focusing on what we want to focus on. So we are focusing on 4 ISTE standards for assessment 8, soaring into a new school year. Really need a better title than that. And even more, we are focusing on 2 at a time. So let's start looking. Again, this is the major document that y'all all look at daily. This is the template for assessment 8 that is I redid, but of course it's still a work in progress as always. I would love any suggestions to make any of this better. Okay, so first we are talking about advocating for equitable access and demonstrating effective communications with all student supporters. So of course those are the abbreviated versions of the standards. You can go up here to really look at the whole standards. I feel that they go well together because we're talking about access to content learning opportunities for all students, and then we're talking about almost equitable access again when you're communicating with students and parents. So I see 4D as really tying into 2B with access. So we are going to talk about access for the first part. So I have resources for you to read here. These are all new resources. This one, Miss Batt in the library just got it for us digitally. I didn't assign a particular part of it except for one quote that I really liked on page 13. Honestly, I scanned through this whole document in about 20 minutes. It's really not a long document, and I kind of picked and chose what I wanted to read in it, but I just like it's a breath of fresh air document talking about how we're not really looking at getting devices into kids' hands anymore because the CARES Act and COVID kind of did that. But now we're talking about if they haven't had these devices for their whole lives versus somebody that has, and they don't know how to use them. You know, somebody that's had a device their whole life, they may know how to Google something and see if their Google search is meaningful. Somebody that just got a device may not. Somebody that just got a device may not have internet in their homes. And only can have internet in these schools. So that's what we're talking about here. And I'm going to skip the learn section there and go down to the project for these 2 standards. It's really 2 separate projects for this assessment. So this one we're talking about back to school. I would like y'all to tell me if you would like to have a live meeting or not. I am going to leave that up to you guys. But different tools that I'm talking about here is like PowerPoint Live, Wakelet to curate resources, screencasting, which I'll know how to do, YouTube using closed captions, things like that. If y'all are okay with all of those, we don't have to have a live Zoom meeting. Personally, I like to see your faces, so if we could have a live Zoom meeting to talk this out, that would be great as well. So what are you doing here? You are planning a back-to-school event for your students and your parents. So what I was going to do, what I would like to do on the live meeting is really look at what are our barriers. I mean, all of these things are going to be similar within our classrooms. Do we have a group of students at our school that may not have access that they need at home? If so, what can we do about that? What type of cultural competency do we need to address beyond just language. So my first thing, and I think it's obvious to all of us, what if our parents are not native English speakers? What can we do in these back to school events to really communicate with all students, all parents, and talk about that? But also, hang on, I'm gonna have to pause about that. And these are just some guiding questions to really try to identify a group of students or special situations with both students and parents that we can maybe bridge a gap for. So that's what we're gonna plan, and this is what the live meeting would be about, is kind of brainstorming all of this as a group. And then actually implement this, pilot this. I want you guys to create these back to school events for the students and the parents. I also want you to implement it. Now, what is that going to look like? That means that you're going to pull a friend, or you're going to make a screencast of doing this. Whatever you do, remember with ISTE, we have to show that we implemented things, not just planned them. And I know that you are going to actually implement them in the fall, but I like to show ISTE that we pilot things, and then we make changes based on the pilot, and then we implement them again. So remember to use your highlighting tools and really look at where you're meeting those two standards. Again, I think that separating out the standards and trying to meet two of them at a time might be beneficial. Let me know what y'all think. So that's the first part of this. I'm going to go back up to the beginning and look at the other two standards we're going to be looking at in this assessment. So we are talking about here, wrong one. How are students able to set their own learning goals and work toward them? And how do you allow students to creatively express ideas and knowledge? I have to tell you guys personally, these are two of my weaker areas, and I'm hoping that we can grow in this together. So here is your research that we're going to look at. And here's my question to you. Most of you are in scripted curriculums and mandated assessments. How in the world can we meet these two goals when we have mandated scripted curriculums and mandated assessments? What I'm proposing is that we start small. So we start with a targeted group of students. Say that you are the choir director after school, or you're the beta club moderator, or you're the robotics coordinator, whatever. I'm hoping that we can pilot something like this with a small group of students and then go on to a larger group of students. So going down here, what exactly do you have to do? We are going to, say we don't have to follow a scripted curriculum for the day, and try to plan out something that we can allow the students to be a little more creative. Of course, it has to do with standards that you are going to teach. So go in your fall curriculum and try to find a standard or an objective that you don't have to script, but you can let the students have some choice with. I put a couple examples up here. So in 4th grade, they talk about American states. In 2nd and 3rd, I think, it's animal habitats. I was thinking about Hayden here with historical reading and writing in middle school. Can you give either your whole class, if you think you can, that would be wonderful, or a small group of students a topic, and then allow them to learn about that topic in their own way? So can you have them say, what do you want to learn and how will you like to learn them? What I've come up with here is, I think, a good idea. It's a choose your own adventure. So this is a resource for how to design a choose your own adventure with your students. I love the resources that they give here. So this is, y'all, this is going to look totally different depending on what you teach. but I'm going to, give a little bitty example. Say Madeline with her little bitties is starting to teach about animal habitats, and you're talking about some creatures live in a rainforest, and some creatures live in an Arctic, and some creatures live in different places. Could you tell the students, of course, it can't be open-ended, if you could tell them, okay, I want you to learn about an animal in the Arctic, and can you allow the students to choose what animal they would like to learn about? I want to learn about the polar bears because I think they're cute and I want to pet them. And I want to learn about it by looking at videos that my teacher has put together. So can we do this little choose your own adventure? That's what I'm going for. We'll see how it works out. Again, Hayden's in middle school is going to look very different from Shannon's in elementary school, which is going to look very different to Manette's as a administrator professional development type place. So when you're doing this, just keep in mind these two standards. This is what we're trying to do. The students take ownership of their learning goals and outcomes. So we want the students to be choosing what they learn and how they learn. And even perhaps we could add on, I think I had this as a foundational knowledge, choosing how they show what they've learned. That's 7A here. So that could be put into here as well. And then model or nurture creativity. Basically, we're not telling the kids what step by step to do. We're telling the kiddos, we're trying to allow them to be creative with what they learn, how they learn, and how they show it. I'm sure this was clear as muddy water, as always, and I'm sure you guys will not watch this screencast at least till Friday when the literature review is due, but please, as always, let me know if you have suggestions for improvements on how to meet these standards, suggestions on improvements for the template, or if this just doesn't make sense and you want to have a phone call and hash it out in your situation. I am always here. Have a wonderful day, and thank you guys always for all your hard work. Bye.